we'll start with our roll call. We'll have Census do that quick.
Thank you. Stacy Herridge,
Yes.
Sherry Jones,
Here.
Geraldine Greer,
Here.
Amy Asink, Kelly
Here.
Speed.
Here.
Okay,
Sorry.
Kelly Spees, Susan Smith.
Here.
Okay, so those are the names of the members. Other participant,
Did you get Melissa Bonson?
Okay, thank you, Melissa. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Melissa Benson here. And then I will go on to read other names. What I will do is I would read from a previous minute, and then if those people are not there, then we move on to the next one. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Renee Arnold. Okay, not present. Selena Humphrey. Not present. Erin Canfield. Is Erin present? Ann Ditsworth. Kathy Voigt.
Aaron and Ann are in the chat pod is here. Census, I'm sorry. I just wanted to make sure you knew that.
Okay, thank you.
Here. Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry to interrupt.
Lisa Kent.
Here.
Okay. Nancy Booten.
Here. Did you hear me?
Yes, I did.
Okay,
I have
thank
it
you.
here. Travis Case.
Here in the chat pod.
Okay.
Amy did join after you called her name, Census.
Yes, I have Amy here. Okay, I think, are there other recorders that I am missing? If so,
Sandy,
please state
I
your
see
name.
Sandy Smith. You have Sandy Smith on
Susan.
you. Susan, okay.
Susan, she said here.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
We got, I think we got everybody.
Sorry, okay.
Okay.
Natalie Stefner.
Here.
Okay, I think those are all the recorders. We have Phil Dunshee, Census, Corey, Stracer, Lisa Long, Christine Delaney Cole, Samantha McMahon, all here.
Okay.
That
Great.
completes the names of attendees. The meeting may continue.
Thank you, Census.
Thank you, Census. Okay, we'll go ahead and start with the April 11th, 2024 summary of the subcommittee from last meeting. Did everyone have a chance to review the minutes and have any additions, corrections? If not, I would certainly take a motion for approval.
This is Geraldine. I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Geraldine. Do I have a second? I can go ahead and second. This is Stacy. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Now we'll move on to the financial reports, starting with the accounts receivable update. Lisa, would you want to cover that?
Absolutely. The first two are the reimbursement from the state treasurer, and we are one behind because, as you all know, Kay left us in March, and I was covering things in April, and didn't get the April reimbursement invoice sent to Nancy for her approval and then on to the treasurer until later in the month. So we did take care of that. And then the current one, the 32,000 one, that one will go to the state treasurer today, and I'll be passing that responsibility on to Samantha McMahon, our new accounting coordinator. Copeland Law, that was a chargeback on their credit card. They had 5 or 6 transactions for the same amount on their card, and confused ours with some other charges they had that day. The contact at Copeland was most apologetic, and we issued an invoice to them. We did receive the $15 from Lee County, so Nancy took care of that. We're waiting for a check from Page County. That was a duplicate distribution on e-submission. It was also a duplicate charge to the submitter, we process somewhere over 300,000 documents a year electronically, and this happens a couple times a year. So that one's all straightened out. And then the one that Phil has highlighted for Simplifile, they have indicated that they would rather have us pull those funds from their account rather than sending us money. And Kelly is working on that to make that happen. We have a team meeting scheduled for later today, and we'll follow up with him to see when that will take place. So I'm open to questions if anyone has any.
Any questions for Lisa? Thanks for the good explanation. Okay, we'll move along to the May summary of the March ESS payments.
Thank you.
Yeah, Phil.
So we'll start with the basically the bills that we received in the month of April. Most of them are things that you are seeing on a monthly basis, and I'm not going to cover every single item, but two that I think were noteworthy is the first and probably the most significant was the Light Edge Solutions invoice for $18,009. There are two things going on with that. One of them is that the invoice that they sent us actually is for both the month of April and May. So it does represent 2 months of invoices. And then going forward, basically the way their billing will work is that they basically bill in advance. So I haven't received it yet, but I'm expecting to get an invoice here for the month of June that we will process, and then we should be standard going forward. The other thing that's going on with this invoice is that in the billing that they sent us, they charged us for a portion of the service that they had in their system that we started and completed the migration to their systems in March, and we do not agree with that. And so they and this is not a disputed issue, that they have already issued us a credit memo for that. And then the other thing that is in discussion is that there were just minor things in the bill that do not match up with our service agreement. And so we have met with the billing team and our project manager to talk through those, and the ball is back in their court. I have instructed, and I think this has already been done, Samantha to pay Light Edge the amount represented in our service invoice. So even though we received a bill for $18,009, we're not paying that. We're paying what is due to us under our service agreement, but we're still working out some of the paperwork to go along with that. This still is higher than we originally budgeted for April and going forward. What mitigates this somewhat is that when we put the original budget together back in February, when we knew this was going to happen, we actually budgeted for this to start in March. So even though we're being billed for 2 months and therefore April and May, we did budget for this. So compared to what we budgeted for, it really is going to end up being a wash. So I want to make sure we explain what's happening there. Then I did just want to point out that, Tyler Technologies purchased CSI. I know we talked about this in previous meetings, but that's where the forward file redaction payments are going now. So we have had some issues with Tyler billing as it transitioned from CSI to Tyler Technologies. And I think we have those issues worked out now, but I just want to highlight that is a change from past history. Then a couple of things I want to highlight in the credit card charges for the month. The first was the Amazon bill. That is not extraordinarily high. It's below budget. And if you recall, the budget that we originally approved, and then even modified back in February, I saw trend lines that were sending us higher and higher in our Amazon costs. Fortunately, Kelly has been able to fine tune some of our use of that Amazon Web Services, which we use primarily for backup. And so we've got that more under control. So you'll see in the budget that I'm presenting, the budget amendment I'm presenting to you later on in the meeting, that the amount is still, that I'm budgeting for is still higher than this. And we're going to continue to try and keep control of it. But it is the budget amendment I'm presenting you is lower than what we originally budgeted, but I'm not pulling it all of the way back because I think we need to anticipate that, our storage goes up every month. So, we have to anticipate some type of an increase. So that's what that is. And then we did have a death in the family, so to speak, for a member of our team. And we do have a small amount in our budget for condolence type issues. And that's what the Hy-Vee bill is at the bottom. Everything else in the list is something that you typically see, and so I don't feel the need to go over those. That said, we have people that are not with us all the time, and Susan hasn't seen this a million times, and if anybody, Erin isn't with us forever, Anne's sort of somewhat new to the conversation. I want to make sure that if any of you have any specific questions and you just want to say, shout out, hey, what is that item for? I'm very happy to answer that question. Otherwise, this is the payment report for the month. Any questions?
Bill, I have a question. Go back one page about the transaction list by date. So Tyler Technologies, I know the billing is kind of messed up, but do we see any kind of increase with that takeover with CSI? I mean,
no, they just made a few mistakes. So there's not an increase in fees, and we're still paying the same rate per page. The one thing I would say to you is that this has sort of reactivated a conversation internally about, should we consider doing this differently? To their credit, CSI has done a great job for us over the years. They were a great partner, especially during the peak of the redaction project back in 2009 through 2011. Time marches on. They have not increased our rates since then, so it's been fairly steady and kind of a dependable thing. Our costs for redaction primarily are dependent upon recording activity. The more recording activity there is, the more of that costs us, but we're making more money than as well. So it hasn't been as much of an issue. With the change, even though the same team is still doing the redaction service, things are a little bit different from a business perspective. And it causes us some pause. I don't want you to interpret that as criticism. It just causes us to reflect, is there some other way to do things? And the other part of it is, it's a $5,000 item every month. Is there some other method that we could use? There have been changes in technology over the last 15 years, and we potentially could explore alternatives, including the possibility of bringing it in-house. So I don't have a RFQ or anything ready to share with you. I just want to share with you that those discussions, primarily between me and Kelly, are taking place. So I hope that answers your question.
it certainly did. And I just wondered, me personally, Tyler kind of dropped the ball and didn't invoice our IT department for 2 years of our Eagle recorder. So And then sent a new contract, and it was increased by 28% for my annual subscription. So that's where I was a little bit leery. I just thought I would add that little bit
Yeah.
to the conversation. So it's always good to
Yeah, I think
check.
what we've seen is really just a transition error, not really any kind of business change. But that doesn't mean we won't see it either. It is a new company, and or a different company. So we'll keep an eye on that.
Great. Thank you for the explanation. Anyone else have any questions for Phil? If not, I would take a motion for approval of the May summary of the March ESS payments.
This is Sherry. I'll move to approve.
Thanks, Sherry. Do I have a second?
Susan Smith, I'll second it.
Thanks, Susan. And Amy got in the chat pod too. So I'll give that one to Susan. At that time, all in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Moving on to Fund 255 reimbursement invoice.
Okay, I've shared this before, but I want to repeat it just to make sure everybody understands what we're doing. And that is that we have tended in recent history to associate the reimbursement invoice that we submit to Fund 255 in the State Treasurer's Office with our payroll. We are in a period where our payroll exceeds income in Fund 255. So as a way to sort of maintain some consistency, make sure that we've got an appropriate balance in Fund 255, kind of as an unofficial reserve fund, we have adopted the practice of only submitting an invoice in the amount of the income we have received from the prior month. So that means that we, in the $1 so-called e-commerce fee or the hour land records fee, that generated, including interest earned, $32,541. And so we said, okay, that's all we're going to bill for, even though our payroll is actually higher than that. And essentially, we treat Fund 255 as an income stream. And the income stream is what it is. And we try to estimate that, but we don't spend more than we're taking in. There was a period of time, if you go back to 2023 and the end of 2022, where we were actively working to migrate funds from Fund 255 over into the operating account. But we pretty much have completed that activity. And I would say, depending on how policy changes are considered associated with any fee policy changes, the e-commerce fee may be different in the future. So, and in fact, it may not even exist in the future, depending on what happens. So it's something that is a kind of an artifact of history with the project, and we'll just have to see how it plays out. So we would request your approval of this month's invoice to the State Treasurer's Office from Fund 255. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? If not, I would take a motion for the Fund 255 reimbursement invoice payment.
This is Amy. I can make a motion.
Thanks, Amy. Do I have a second?
This is Geraldine. I'll second.
Thanks, Geraldine. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay, moving on to the March and first quarter 2024 financial reports.
Okay, before I get into the financial reports, I wish to pause and Samantha, I don't know if you can activate your camera, if you would, for just a minute, but I would like you to do that if you can, and say hello so you show up on screen. Can you do that? Does anybody see? I probably am putting her on the spot.
No.
But
Hi. Welcome.
yeah, welcome. I just want everybody to acknowledge Samantha. She's the newest member of our team. She is our new accounting coordinator. And I just want to say she started, I think, on April 22nd, the very first day of the audit so when the audit was going on, she kind of jumped in to saw the craziness that goes along with that. And then has taken over the daily bookkeeping, the imports, the reconciliation reports, and you're going to hear from her and Lisa here in a little bit. But I just wanted to acknowledge that she's a new member of the team. We're really happy to have her, and you know, I observe every day that passes, I'm even happier because she's doing a great job. So.
Great.
All right. So I'll turn to her and Lisa in just a second because they have a part of this presentation. But let me just start with the bank statement. And the important thing here is the ending balance is $1,362,506.44. And then if I go ahead and look at the reconciliation report for the account, we match up. So this is the golden ticket as far as I'm concerned. You know, that means that our financial statements are matching up with our bank statement, and that's a very good thing. So with that, one of the things that happened in the I guess the previous era is that there were some accounting errors that were made. And I reported to you at the previous meeting that some transactions were assigned to the wrong accounts. And because of the way some of those errors occurred, some of the transactions did not actually end up showing up in the profit and loss statement. And in some cases, it affected the balance sheet as well. Not a huge amount, but still, you know, when things don't match up, that's just not a good thing. I want to give a tremendous amount of credit to both Lisa and Samantha for working together. And what they have done is they've gone through the financials for 2024 and kind of gone through the whole thing to make sure, okay, do we have everything accounted for correctly? And so one of the things that I promised you that we would do at this meeting would be to show you the journal entries that are being made or that have been made in order to get everything back the way it should be. And then in addition to that, I asked Samantha and Lisa to work together to prepare a memo for each of the journal entries to indicate, okay, what was that for? Why did that change have to be made? And so that memo is before you in your packet from Lisa and Samantha. And I've asked them to be prepared to walk through the adjusting journal entries to explain what they are. Some of them are trivial, like 1 cent rounding errors, but the others are more substantive. So Lisa and Samantha, I give you the floor.
Okay, I'll start and Sam, can you jump in as she likes? The first bullet point is a group of rounding errors, as Phil said. It's the difference between the point of sale deposit that we're receiving and the report. And we don't know why it's happening. And as you all know, we are switching point of sale companies. We're going from Bank Card USA to Professional Solutions. There's a agenda item on that later for an update. So if we were going to continue doing business with Bank Card USA, we would investigate this further. But in each case here, we're talking about 1 cent. So we're looking at less than a dime on those. So not a huge impact on anything. I think the auditors would say a non-material difference. The next one, February 20th, the way the Bankers Trust bank analysis fees was entered was incorrect. So we made sure that that was added to the correct line item so it would be reflected in the profit and loss statement. I do have to give credit to Phil because he keeps a really close eye on financials and noticed that that was not showing up in the balance sheet or P&L. So
Lisa, can I interrupt for just a minute?
Absolutely.
I want the members of the subcommittee and our guests today to kind of have a little help in reading this. So if you look at I'm just going to highlight the second bullet here. So that was associated with the bank analysis fee. The journal entry number is 36. So if you go forward to the actual journal entries, you will be able to see exactly which item that is. So the key to following this in your packet is to match up the bullet point with the number of the journal entry. So in this case, you can see that the error was $471.76, and that did not show up in the P&L, and it should have, because it is an expense item. So sorry for the interruption, but I think it will help the subcommittee members follow the key and more easily track what you're talking about. I'm handing it back to you. Sorry for the
Okay,
interruption.
no problem. Does anyone have any questions about what I've said or what Phil has said? Pop those in the chat pod. Somebody will read them, I'm sure. So the next one is journal entry number 37. It was, again, an error in the point of sale fees, the way they were entered in QuickBooks. And so we made that correction, and that amount was, I'm sorry, things are moving on my screen. Anyway.
Sorry.
Okay, so you guys can you can continue to do that. It was just, it was unusual the way things had been entered, and Phil and I and Sam all worked to clean those up. Same thing in February, an error was made in the entry of fees paid to Professional Solutions for fees for e-submission credit card transactions. So every month we pay a bank card analysis, or we pay a bank analysis fee to Bankers Trust. We pay Bank Card USA. Those are all the fees associated with the point of sale transactions that are processed in the counties. And we receive those charges on like the second business day of the month. We also pay Vericheck. That's for the ACH transactions for e-submission. And we pay Professional Solutions for e-submission credit card transactions. So there's a lot of moving parts here, and there are just some things, as you can see from the journal entries. Here's Vericheck for February that was entered incorrectly. And so we had to reclassify to make sure everything showed up correctly in the profit and loss statement and the balance sheet. So I'm going to move on here to journal entry number 30, and also it corresponds to journal entry 44, which is at the end of the memo. We determined that this entry was made in error, and so we went back and corrected it. So we flipped it back. It was to adjust the balance because of an incorrect Bank Card USA report and the way it was entered. And all kudos to Sam on this one, because she dug and dug and dug to make sure that everything was correct, and I really appreciate her help. So you'll see, you can see journal entry number 30, and then if you scroll down, you'll see number 44 that reverses that transaction. On March 19th, an error was made when entering the CSC drawdown deposit in e-submission. And so that's journal entry number 33. It was a $100 deposit. Daily, we receive an ACH push to our Bankers Trust account from CSC for their e-submission charges. Today, we will receive the deposit for the transactions that they processed on Tuesday. So it's always just one day behind. And it's not what they owe us, because it's a drawdown account. So we have a balance with, they have a balance with us. That balance is somewhere between $40,000 and $45,000, depending on the transactions that they have processed. So that has to be entered in e-submission, so that as you are processing transactions, the balance goes down. Okay, so we get the deposit. In this case, it was $2,115, but it was fat fingered to $2,215. So that made the drawdown off. So we had to make a correction for that. So it's not like CSC owes us money. Actually, we have money on deposit from them. And so, but they continue to push that money to us daily to keep the balance in their account. Just FYI, there are a total of 4 drawdown accounts that we work with. 2 of those are state agencies, the Department of Revenue and the Department of Transportation, CSC, and then the 4th one is Potosi Law, a firm in West Des Moines or Clive. So we received those deposits, we enter them in e-submission so that they can be imported into QuickBooks through the files that are generated. March 4th, this is another error on journal entry 40 with the way fees were entered. And so we were able to go back and make those corrections so that everybody shows up. I feel good about where we are and what we have done to date. March 26th, this was another CSC drawdown deposit. This was my error, and I entered it twice. And so we needed to fix that by increasing the drawdown balance and decreasing the cash balance in Bankers Trust. We made sure to make the correction in e-submission too. So the balance reflected that the submitter can see is correct when they look at it. March 31st, journal entry number 43. This is something Sam worked on, and both sides of the entry were in the Bankers Trust account, one in settlement, the other in reserve. And so we corrected that to classify the expense as a reserve expense on the P&L. And that's journal entry number 43. That was a larger expense. Prism is the e-submission image viewer that we all cannot get along without. The next one, journal entry number 44 on March 31st. This adjusts the previous journal entry number 30, which was made in error. And then finally, I think this is the last one, journal entry 41. In April, this goes back to what Phil was talking about with Tyler and CSI. In April, we received notification from CSI Tyler of an overcharge for backfile redaction in January. The overpayment, so we had an overcharge that we paid. The overpayment was credited to the invoices received and payments made for forward file in redaction in February and March. So this goes back to what Phil has said about just a difference in process. So our people at CSI, Michael and Tammy, provide the numbers now to Tyler to get the invoice to us. And the process has not always been as timely as it used to be with CSI when Tammy was doing those and getting those to us every day. We would maybe follow up on the first or the second and say, hey, I'm looking for this invoice. We want to get you paid. We wanted to get this packet put together for you, the finance committee. So they were behind, they caught up. They did determine that there was that overpayment. So they applied the overpayment to the invoices received for February and March for forward file redaction. And then we did a journal entry to increase the funds in the reserve, in the redaction reserve that will be used for backfile redaction. And then we had to decrease the cash balance in Bankers Trust. So Phil and Samantha, I talked a lot. Do either of you have anything you want to say? Or does anyone on the committee have questions?
I think you let Samantha off way too easy there, Elizabeth.
Hey, she's only 3 weeks in.
Yeah.
You guys, Phil welcomed her. I have to say welcome to Samantha. She is killing it and doing a terrific job. But we are confident that what we have done is the right thing and that everything is reflected correctly. And certainly this will be an item for the auditors to review when they're here to do the audit next spring.
I
This
just
is
have to
Mel.
say, this is awesome. Honestly, I'm sorry, Mel. I'm so sorry that I interrupted you, but if you look, I mean, Phil will
No.
go through all the other accounts that we have. Can you imagine, okay, where does this go and what's this for? And there's a lot of different accounts, a lot of moving parts as well. So I really, really appreciate the journal entries and the explanations. This is great, guys. So great work. Anyone else have
Yeah,
comments?
this
Mel, go
is
ahead.
this is Mel. I was just going to echo that, and just for transparency with all of it. So we have it all documented, but there wasn't anything missing. It's just typos and cleanups, correct?
Yes.
Perfect. And thanks again for explaining all that and documenting it.
Yeah, Mel, we have I would say a really good handle on, okay, why haven't we received this bill this month? And we have things that are automatically billed to our credit card. As an example, the Adobe invoice every month that we use, or for the phone service, just for simplicity, so we don't have to send a check. And so when we get notification when the card is charged, we get those invoices, we pop them into our filing system, and you know, then it's like, okay, why don't we have this one? Let's answer that question. And Sam has been instrumental, I would say, saying, okay, why don't we have this? Can I call them? And she's all, yeah, it's going really well.
I'm gonna give an audit update later, so I'm gonna hold any further comment on this right now, but I do have a few additional things to say. Does any member of the subcommittee have a question for me or for Lisa or for Samantha regarding the journal entries? And if not, I'll continue on with the financial reports. And I know everybody wants to get to the budget, so I'll be real quick about it. You know, this is first we present to you the March P&L statement, and we had a focus on the budget. We had $126,708 in budgeted income, and we had $99,392 in budgeted expenses. And then with the journal entry, we corrected the notation to make sure that we're showing that we did expend $22,050 from the reserve fund to pay for a PRISM license this year. And this is part of our budget strategy, has been that there are certain larger expenses that we decided that we're just going to pay for that out of the reserve until we get to a more stable and growing economy, and that is one of those. And then for the quarter, we had $366,687 in budgeted income and $309,748 in budgeted expenses. Our net income for the entire account, including all the revolving income and expenses, was $19,755 and change. And then for the balance sheet, we have total assets and liabilities of $2,411,000. Some of that is in the form of the value of developed software. So we're carrying $786,000 in value from the investments that we made in the Owl Advocate software. We had partially developed but not completed software, other software development, and that was valued at $380,000 and change. When we complete the audit, some of those are going to be reduced because of just natural depreciation. And then our computer equipment line item is also going to be changed at the completion of the audit, because we're one more year deeper into the value of the equipment. And honestly, when we get to the end of 2024, we're pretty much going to write off the asset of equipment altogether, because we moved to the cloud. So it's not even relevant to our operation anymore. The other thing that I highlighted was the Bankers Trust settlement account that is not a reserve in the amount of $1.1 million. And I would just remind everybody that what is represented in the total settlement value is not the cash that we have in the bank, because we are on accrual accounting. And so when there is an e-submission transaction, we recognize the income when the transaction occurs, but it may not actually show up in the bank for 2 to 3 or sometimes even longer days. All right, the Bankers Trust, this is the credit card statement. We had a beginning balance of $3,637 and change, and ending balance of $3,650.76, and that is what we reconciled to. So our books are matching up. Then looking at Fund 255, and this is as of the end of March. As a reminder, you can see that we had a beginning balance of 155,603, an ending balance of 148,378, and I would just draw your attention to the reconciliation report. So that account has been reconciled as well. And then you may recall the reimbursement invoice that we prepared and asked for your approval. And you can see that it is matching up with the income from the month of March. So this is the pattern that we will be following for a while longer. I think that is it as far as the financial reports, and then we can move into the budget. I would ask for your acceptance and approval of the financial reports.
Any questions for Phil?
Yes.
Or does anyone have any questions? I just wondered if anyone had questions. If not, I would take a motion for approval of the March and the first quarter 2024 financial reports.
This is Gerald, and I can go move.
Thanks, Geraldine. Do I have a second?
Susan Smith, second.
Thank you, Susan. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign.
Those include child stamps, or does he have to get those?
Motion carries. We'll move on to budget amendment, Phil.
Okay, thank you very much. So in your materials, what you received is a memorandum that describes the changes in the budget as represented in this amendment. And then we also provided you with a spreadsheet that shows the different categories of activity. Essentially, what we have done in the budget is to re-examine our expenses and say, okay, what has been adjusted, or what is the new projection, or what's the new reality of what actually happened. And then we sort of backed into the revenue side of the equation. And I want to expand this just a little bit so it's easier to see. So hopefully you can read this a little bit easier. But right now we're looking at the revenue. So as we typically do, obviously March is done, and we basically converted anything that was a projection into an actual value. That's what really happened. May as well have the budget reflect that. Did the same thing for the month of April, although we haven't presented to you the reconciled April financial report. So I'm calling that out separately, and that's what is in the magenta color. So anything that's in the magenta, we kind of know what it is, but we may not have presented the reconciled financial reports to you, but we can be highly confident in what those numbers are. You would see when I get to the e-submission trends that income for e-submission was up in April over the prior year. So we did get a bit of a bump there. But on the other hand, income from Fund 255 is not so going up. The income was, compared to April, we're looking at income of $32,541. And that just kind of is the way it is. So the total income that you're looking at did go up a little bit, but not by a significant amount. If you compared it in February, the proposed budget was $1,761,000, and with this change in the income would be $1,757,000. And the main reason it's negative is because we are recommending an increase in the cost sharing credit for local maintenance services. So we did not start there. I actually started with the hope that we would have a higher number there. And then that takes us into, okay, what do we need to change as far as the expense side of the equation? So let me walk through that. Same story. Or the burnt orange is sort of the budget to actual. The magenta color are known expenses, but we haven't finished the financial reports for them yet. And so we've entered all of the known information on the expense side. And then anything that's in blue is basically the same as you approved in the February amendment. So, okay, the only thing that we're really talking about are those items that are highlighted in gray. So here's the rundown on the changes that I'm recommending. First of all, we did have some small cost increases in our accounting software in our hosted environment from an estimate of $160. It's now running $172. So that change has been made. The accounting line item. This is the line item for Sam's position. Sam, not to get personal, Sam, but the reality is that Sam's a different person. And when she comes in, even though it may be at the same level of compensation from a budget standpoint as before, we can't assume that the same level of benefits would be taken. And so I have built some additional resources into that item to reflect the possibility that she might take advantage of some of the benefits, which may not have been the case with the person previously in the position. So I did increase that amount to reflect that estimate. And if you want to get a ballpark on it, it's not huge. The actual cost in March was $7,600, and I've increased it to $7,900. So not a big change, but I did make that change. In the case of the legal fees, I made a budget error. I built the budget based on a monthly fee of $2,500. And then when I went back and looked at the agreement, Brick Gentry agreed to $2,250. So I reduced that amount, and that is reflected in the budget as well. The next item are ESS meetings. Properly, I will say, the ESS committee did adopt a change in policy to increase the mileage reimbursement rate for face-to-face meetings. Great. The downside of that is having a face-to-face meeting is more expensive than it used to be. We used to budget around $850. Our actual number in February was $1,332. I'm gonna hope that we can manage that, but I changed the budget from about $850 to $1,300 each time we have a face-to-face meeting. And I did cut out one face-to-face meeting. So we might have had a finance meeting face-to-face. Not going to be doing that at this point in time. An area where we are going to save a little bit of money is that we did budget some money for teleconference services. With the use of Zoom and Teams, we just haven't been using teleconference services. I did leave a small amount in December, just in the event that some circumstance might come up where we need to do that. And so it's not a lot, $100, but I did leave it in. I pointed out in the credit card expenses that we spent some miscellaneous funds on some bereavement type activity, and we had budgeted $200 overall. I just adjusted the December amount so that we're basically in the same budget target as what we were. The communications coordinator position, So the billing for the month of March, and we modified the policy to increase the allowed hours from 20 to 25. And so now we're at the next milestone, and I would like to give more hours to Kristen if we can. And so what this budget change reflects is increasing her hours from 25 to 29. 29 is sort of the magic number as far as being part-time, and that's what I'm recommending. So this change in cost reflects the addition of 4 hours a week for Kristen. And so the way the employment agreement is structured, she'll be authorized to work up to 29 hours a week. That doesn't necessarily mean she will. That's going to be based on her personal circumstances. So, but I think it was one of the things that was the most difficult thing to do during the initial budget adjustment. And we would like to, she's doing a very good job. We would like to get her back closer to where she was. Software and equipment, basically this boils down to an increase in the cost for the MailChimp bulk email system that we use. I'm sorry, I misstated that. It's the increase in the cost of the use of the Adobe Creative Cloud software. I did check both MailChimp and SurveyMonkey to try to determine if there are any cost increases in the wind. I'm sure it will happen at some point, but I don't see anything in their documentation that would suggest that it will happen this year. So the only change really is to reflect that change in the Adobe Creative Cloud. All right. Then the policy coordinator position. This is another one where I kind of need to acknowledge that I made a budgeting error, and that is that we did increase the salary for this position at the end of last year, but that was not reflected in the budget that was put together. And now that we're into it and really seeing what the actual monthly costs are, I need to budget for what the reality is. So I have made an adjustment in the budget for census's position. That is not, census don't take this as a commitment for a raise because it's already there. But I do need to budget reality for that. And so that was an error on my part, and this is reflected in the budget I'm presenting to you. I talked a little bit earlier about the changes in Amazon Web Services. I am not going to go too far in cutting that back because it could still increase, but instead of the precipitous increase that we were seeing, it is a modest increase. And so with the changes, we're actually projecting a savings of about $7,000 by making this adjustment. Okay. We're in the area of our software licenses. This is for our development team and the operation of the Iowa Land Record System. And there are some things that we did to mitigate the budget. And you can see that there's $0 in the account for PRISM. That's because we paid for it out of the reserve fund as a budget management measure. We're doing the same things for our DB2 license, and we're doing the same thing for our SUSE software, which basically, don't ask me to tell you what the acronym stands for, but it's basically the operating system for the Linux equipment. And even though we don't use that we're operating our own equipment. We still have to have the software that we're running. And so even though it's on Light Edge, we still have to pay for that. Both of those, DB2 is in the $10,000 cost range. The Linux software somewhere in the $8,000 range. And just because of the way the budget is, we're going to continue to plan to pay for that out of the reserve. If the economy rebounds and if we see our income go up, these may be converted back to budgeted expenses. But for right now, we're leaving it the same. The system equipment here, we had budgeted for the replacement of switches associated with our equipment in the month of August. We don't have to do that now. So I reduced that. That represents about a $5,000 savings. And then as far as the bank account and the payment gateway costs, I haven't really made any adjustments. Those are going to be what they are. It's kind of like redaction. When we have a lot of activity going on, our payment expenses go up. When it's down, we don't pay quite as much. And we'll just have to see how that plays out. So I've made no changes there. So at the end of the day, the budget that you approved and that the ESS committee approved back in February provided for a balance of $16,474 and change. The budget amendment that I'm recommending to you was leave a balance of $7,459, but we have, because income is a little bit different, we have been able to address some items on the expense side. And even though it is not as high as I wanted to go, we were able to increase the cost sharing credit from $115,000 to $130,000. And just to show you what the effect of that is, what I will be recommending this to the ESS committee at their meeting next week, but the revised cost share amount would be different. So Stacy, I'll use you as my guinea pig if you don't mind, and just say that the cost sharing credit for Story County previously was $1,593.24. We ran the formula with $130,000 budgeted, and that calculated out to be $1,676. Okay, but that only consumed $117,000 of the new budget. So in order to get up to that $130,000 threshold, we propose to add $130 to each county. And so Story County now would get a total credit of $1,806.70. And otherwise, the formula works as it does. Those who work hard and have a higher ratio of the submission get more, and those that don't have such a high rate of the submission, the credit amount is less, and that's working as it is intended. So I just wanted to show you those numbers. So this is the budget amendment I'm recommending. If you have any suggested changes or adjustments, now would be the time. Happy to answer your questions.
Questions for Phil? I think you did an awesome job explaining it, and the memo is great as well to go along with it. So any questions at all? Hearing none, I would take a motion for approval of the budget amendment proposed today. And I'll go ahead and make that motion. Do I have a second?
This is Sherry. I'll second it.
Thanks, Sherry. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay, Phil, take it away.
Okay, I'll try to go efficiently here. This is the latest e-submission trend report. You can see that the item that's sort of highlighted here in gold, that the numbers, if you compare it to 2023, we're up. And this is a very good sign. Hopefully it will continue. I'm not counting any chickens yet, but this is a good direction to go. So we were happy to see that. In prior years, we have historically seen a bit of a dip when we get into the month of May. Last year was a bit of an exception to that. So it sort of levels off, and where we really see a peak of activity is in the month of June. And then kind of tapers off or levels off for the remainder of the year. So we'll be very interested to see what happens this year. I wanted to, this sort of fits into the discussion about recording fees and modernization. And the Recorders Association has a fee policy working group that has been working for several months to identify options for increasing the base recording fee. But a part of the modernization initiative is a desire to do a number of things, one of which, the only one of them, but I mean, there are lots of other ideas too, is to establish a recording notification system of some kind. And I think from what we hear, there's a lot of support for that, obviously among recorders, but the stakeholders seem very interested in that as well. We honestly have been transparent about saying we don't have the budget for that as Iowa Land Records. Are we capable of doing it? Heck yes, we are. We've got a good team. I think we know what we're doing. But to realistically say, hey, we can do all these things on our current budget, that's just not real. And so somewhere in this whole discussion, there is going to have to be a discussion about where does Iowa Land Records get the resources to move beyond just maintaining the system that we already have. And a couple of options are being discussed. Nothing's been decided, but this is a part of the fee policy issue that falls in the realm of the ESS Finance Subcommittee and the ESS Coordinating Committee. It's related to what happens to recorders and the association, but it's very particular to ESS. So what are some options that could be explored? And one of them is to essentially establish a recording fee component in the amount of about $5 per document. And if we did that, it would provide, based on current levels of activity, about $700,000 in additional income for ESS and Iowa Land Records, a significant portion of which would likely be used to hire additional internal software developers so that we could do some of the things that people have suggested that we do. An alternative, a possible alternative to that would be to allocate a percentage of income, increased income, that counties received and dedicate it to support Iowa Land Records, somewhere in the range of 10 to 12% of the income. For folks like Stacy, and we're going to be having a discussion with some large counties later today, larger counties would contribute a lot more into that than the smaller counties would. And so you have to kind of balance that. But if we did something in either category, our target budget would be around $2.4 million, and we're at about 1.7 right now, as you can see in the budget. I mean, those are the numbers we have. There are some potential simplifications in recording fees that could go along with this. One of them is the idea that if we had a flat $5 fee for every document recorded, whether it's e-filed or not, that means that maybe we could, for our browser in-state customers, we could eliminate the submission fee. We could just get rid of that and say, this is now our fee. We could also potentially eliminate the $1 e-commerce fee, which would contribute to simplify recording fees. The recorders are talking about some changes in the records management fee that would also simplify it. And I won't go into that here, but there are ways that we can structure this so that it could really simplify the overall recording fee, along with providing resources to Iowa land records. And then the other thing I would say is I might want to preserve a recommendation to continue charging a fee to the commercial e-recording companies like Simplifile, because they aren't really exactly Iowans, and they are making money off of their service. So I think they could maybe afford some type of access fee or service fee to go along with the regular recording fee. So where we are at with this is, I know this is the first conversation that we've had with you about this, but the main discussion is currently with the policy committee for the Recorders Association, and then wherever that leads. But at some point we have to talk about this, because all of those cool things that you want us to do, recording notification system, maybe have a better support system when those technical issues happen in an individual county. That currently I say, I'm sorry, that's not a high priority, because we got too many other things to manage. But with some additional resources, we can have more of a dedicated technical person. I'm sorry, Aaron, if you think I'm shocking you. What I have said, and I will stand by what I've said, is it is achievable. And it is achievable from the standpoint that we could leverage the existing search application to be the platform for that. That is definitely achievable. And I don't think I've ever said that it wouldn't cost any investment. And I don't mean to suggest that it would cost $700,000, because there are a lot of other things in that to-do list as well. So I'm sorry if I ever gave you the impression that we could do it easily and at no cost. I obviously misspoke if you heard me say that. But investments back into the system to create 2 new tools we have a development team of 2.5 people right now. And it's all that group can do is to maintain the system that we have and to do a few things that really have to be done, like modernize to the standpoint of changing our API to a current platform, which one of our team members is basically spending full time on that right now. And the other is we have to update our API with our external submission service, which is the main thing that Simplifile and other large customers use. We have to do that. it's out of date, and we could do a lot better. So if I'm shocking anybody right now, I apologize to you, but this is reality. So, not expecting any decisions today. This is information I've shared with the Key Policy Committee, and you know, I know that things like the notification system are a priority, but it is not correct to say. Just in response to Lisa's comment, I wasn't directly involved in any conversations with the particular legislator. I think what we shared with that person and with the stakeholders is that we were developing a plan, that we intended to include it in the modernization initiative. Boy, I hope none of the members of our team said, and we could do this easily and for free with no investment, because that would not be correct. And the day-to-day work of our team is that essentially where we are at right now is Myrna work full-time on helping your local service providers convert to the updated API for e-submission. And she also is the principal developer for the updated API for the county upload system. It's the engine that feeds our land records so we can display them online. Kelly has worked essentially full-time, putting his finger in the dike, keeping the whole thing running, and managing the conversion from our own equipment to the cloud. We expect that we'll have more of Kelly's time to do development work, since he isn't having to babysit the system constantly, but he's still in the midst of that. We're still fine-tuning the configuration of our new system, but as soon as, whenever that is done, whatever that means, I think he's going to be able to work on some things. But he's the main architect of this whole technical thing, and he wears a lot of hats, like I wear a lot of hats. Okay, Nancy, our other developer, she's had a change in family situation and has voluntarily moved to halftime. And what we're using her for right now is incremental changes in the software, and she's probably the main person doing technical support in terms of documents that get stuck or something happens that we have to figure out why it happened. She's doing most of that work. We're about to release an update to the recorder's e-submission interface that will provide you with a new search tool so that you can search for e-submitted documents in your county simply by entering a date range. And so you can see those documents more easily. It's different than recently recorded. It would show you any document and any status. It's been something that recorders have been asking for quite a while, and we're very close to moving it into production. So those incremental improvements and changes to both our search application and the submission application, Nancy's doing most of that work. We don't have much time to do much of anything else from a development perspective. Development is not just creating new things. It also includes technical support, and Nancy is doing most of that right now. Kelly does a little bit too. But when you've heard me say, we go through a triage system to decide what support is most important or not, I'll say it again, because e-submission transactions are our bread and butter, we're going to take care of e-submission and payment before we take care of an issue with an individual document that for some reason didn't get to the portal on time. That just is the reality. If we had more resources, maybe we would be in a position to have a technical full-time, or at least a half a time technical support position that did just that type of a thing. And I know every one of you have at some point had some glitch that you wanted us to fix, and we do the best we can with what we have.
Hey, it's Lisa. I'm going to jump in here for a second. One of the things Kelly did this week, Lisa Kent, and I don't know who else is on the line that this affected. He made 25,000+ documents public that were backfiled that had come back from redaction. So that doesn't happen automatically. It has to be done manually. So he did that. Myrna, as Phil stated, is working closely with the service providers. Corey and I have helped in creating test groups for them. Myrna has a very strict protocol in place of testing that we make sure has completed, and she's checking the logs so that should something be moved to production, we're not going to have to support them. Everything is going to work. So it's a tedious process, and sometimes service providers don't listen. And so we go back and forth a lot while she's saying, nope, this isn't working. And we had that conversation with somebody a couple of weeks ago as a team of saying, okay, this is probably not going to work the way we all wanted it to. And so we're going to take a step back and figure out what's going to work best. So it is a lot of technical support too. If there's ever something that nobody can fix, it's always Kelly. If Nancy can't get it, if Myrna can't get it, and they're both going to him for questions too.
Let me answer Melissa's question. The answer right now is I don't know yet. I would like to be in a position, my ideal position would be to have resources to add developers to the team. That's the best long-term situation for our land records and recorders. It just is. Could we do an RFQ or an RFP to have an outside developer help us do that? Yes, we could. Natalie, I'm not sure I understand your question. How much fee increase total are you basing the $5 from? Could you?
Yeah, sorry, I figured it wasn't going to be too clear. So yeah, if you're exploring the $5, I guess, what are you thinking the fee increase total would be to take the $5? Does that make sense?
Well, generally speaking, if you the simple math is $5 times number of recorded documents, okay? And I think I forget what year it is, but basically we calculated that to be about $2.4 million, right? And so what did you do to mitigate that? From my perspective, it represents about a $700,000 increase. And keep in mind that part of the idea is that we get rid of the $3 e-submission fee for our customers. We get rid of the $1 fee that currently is a part of your recording fee. Those two things. So you're kind of giving back at least $2.50, $3, by eliminating those fees. So the net is about an additional $1 somewhere in there. And I've estimated 2.4 million as a total revenue based on current levels of recording. So I hope that helps.
And that, Phil, those are based on 2023 numbers.
Right.
So you always have to think about, our recording's been pretty low last year, and then so it would fluctuate with the market. So then it would grow when the volume increases, and bare bones if we're down in recording. So I think that's what we've been talking about in our fee policy work group with a lot of recorders throughout the whole state is Is that enough? Well, it should be enough. And I think, I'm just speaking from the fee policy group, is that it'd be great to be able to treat the e-submitters, you know, the local law firms, the same as people walking in the counter, so they don't have to charge that $3 fee. Will we see e-submission increasing? I bet we'll see a lot of e-submission increase, but that's just my own personal opinion. And if you guys ever have any questions at all, or want to, you know, interject or email your representatives on the fee policy working group, that this is the perfect time to do that. So
Natalie, were you asking about we're suggesting a $10 per page. Is that what you were kind of asking about?
Yes, somewhat. So where,
Okay.
so if he chooses $5, or let's say we decide $5 to go to Iowa Land Records for that, I guess how much would the county get? So if we're gonna increase it, if it's $7 now, let's just say we go to $10. That's, well, obviously we have to go up more than $10, but how much?
There are Natalie, there are two. I've got two options here. Just you know, I don't know if either of them has legs, but if you get one approach would be, okay, the recorders charge a fee of $10 per page, and that's just a flat fee, right? It's a calculation by page, and other things will be done to simplify that. And then on top of that, there could be a $5 per document fee, not per page. And that is one option. Another option, which is outlined in the memo here, would be to make it a percentage of the percentage of the base recording fee charged by recorders. And so what that would mean is a little bit less would go into the county general fund. And it also would mean that large counties would contribute more than small counties would. And I suppose that's true in either case. So, and then Anne asked a question about we're at $7 per document currently. What's the new number? Well, I can't speak out of turn because it hasn't been decided yet. But the model that the fee policy working group seems to be settling on, again, they haven't decided anything, neither has the ICRA executive board, but it would be $10 a page, period. That's where they're going. Melissa's asked if we have checked with an attorney or legal team. The shorter answer is no, we haven't had that conversation yet. But my experience is if you put it in the code of Iowa, it's probably going to be legal. Either of those. I mean, this is a statutory change, right? So if the legislature approves a bill that does this and the governor signs it, it becomes law. So I think that it would be, I'm confident it would be legal if you do that. So I meant for this to be a short informational item, but it's turned into much more than that, which I greatly appreciate. And I would encourage everybody to give attention to the work that the fee policy working group is doing. Their next meeting is May 15th. And each district has 2 representatives on that group. And I would encourage you to communicate with them. I'm running out of time. I have run out of time. I've kept you over and I didn't mean to. I think the only thing I'll say 2 other things. One is there have been questions raised about whether or not we should be actively and assertively pursuing an option to put money into an interest-bearing account, which I appreciate and understand. And, you know, we haven't actually talked about this in a while, and I've tried to address it in the memo that's in your packet. But 2 things about that. One is I am fundamentally of the opinion that the priority is cash flow over a little bit of interest income. We want to make sure counties get their money. We've always felt that was a priority. And to me, that is more important than a little bit of interest income in the budget. Having said that, we hear the suggestion loud and clear. We have more homework to be done. We're going to do that. Just please understand that we're not going to rush into it. We're going to do our homework and we'll come back to you with our findings. So I'll leave it at that. And if you have any questions about my logic here and my memo, we can talk about it in a future meeting, or you can give me a shout. The last thing I want to say, kind of going back to our discussion about the financials and the journal entries and that sort of thing. Honestly, we've been through the audit. Our auditors, when they did our extra discussion with them, they had no issues. And I have to admit to you, I was, wow, how did that happen? And it's just because of, fundamentally the basics were covered. And I think the auditor is going to say our financial reports fairly reflect the financial position of the association. Proper controls are in place, and I don't expect any issues to be called out or identified as deficiencies. And given the changes that we have made in the way we do accounting in the last year, I'm very grateful that that's kind of where we're at. And I'm confident that we'll be in a good position going forward. I'll be happy to answer any questions, but expect to receive the audit report in early August as usual, and we'll have all the details for you then. And the packet for the Finance Subcommittee is posted on the Iowa Land Records website in the accountability of reporting section.
I did check there,
download.
Bill. It's just the agenda in both places. The packet
Oh.
and the agenda is just the agenda.
Huh. I looked just the other day to see if it was there, and I made my mark. We'll make
I'll
sure.
check again.
I
Well,
just emailed it to him.
We will make sure that it gets
Yeah.
posted. Okay, and we'll send it to you too. We'll do it both ways. We want you to have the information. Stacey, that's all I have for you today.
Okay, any other questions or comments for the good of the group? I just have to echo, I appreciate all the extra time and the memos and the information. Transparency is the most important thing. And I just really appreciate the ILR team, especially right now. So keep on moving forward. Anybody have any other comments? If not, we'll end our meeting. Our next meeting is June 6th, 2024.
Thank
Have
you,
a good rest of
everybody.
your day.
Have
Thanks,
a good day.
guys.
Bye-bye.
Thanks,
Bye.
everyone.